Okay, let's unpack this.
Mm.
Today we are taking a really deep, almost forensic dive into a story that pits pure academic rationality against raw institutional power.
Yeah, this is the case of Dr. Chen Jingyuan.
A physics PhD, an independent scholar who was sentenced to 20 months for a charge that is, well, notoriously vague, picking quarrels and provoking trouble.
Or Sun Sun Zishi. And what makes this so remarkable isn't just the crime itself, which is basically just retweeting and commenting on social media.
Yeah.
It's the depth of the source material we have. We've got the official indictment, the judgment, the appeal, and Dr. Chen's own incredibly detailed self-defense.
And a harrowing one at that. But the real insight, I think, comes from this analysis you brought to the table, which takes the whole legal case and just systematically evaluates it.
Right, using 8 major Western moral and political philosophy frameworks.
So this isn't just about what happened. It's about what it means when a scholar, someone viewing the world through logic and complex systems, collides head-on with the demands of the state.
Exactly. So what we're trying to do here is give you the ultimate shortcut to understanding that collision. How one system, the law, tries to cram intellectual curiosity into a criminal box.
And how reason fights back.
And how it fights back.
So let's start with the man at the center of this storm, Dr. Chen.
He's a physics PhD. His specialty is nonlinear complex systems, chaos theory.
So a serious academic.
Very. And he describes himself as a lifelong learner, an independent scholar,
Gotcha.
deliberately not attached to any political or economic group.
That perspective is so critical here, isn't it? He wasn't seeing his online activity as, activism.
It's not at all. He saw social media, this whole giant, messy, contradictory sphere of information, as a complex system to be studied.
Like a data set.
Precisely. His goal, and he stated this formally, was this classical scholarly pursuit to understand the connections in the world and comprehend historical changes.
But the state saw it differently. They charged him with a very specific, very serious crime. What were the core things the prosecution had to prove?
Okay, so for this charge, they needed to prove 3 things. First, that he acted with knowing intent, meaning he knew the information was false.
Okay, knowing intent.
Second, that he actually spread false information. And third, that this activity caused severe social disorder.
Those are the 3 legs of the stool.
Those are the 3 legs. And this is where Dr. Chen just leveraged his unique expertise. He went after that 3rd leg, the severe social disorder, with his background in chaos theory.
I mean, that is just an incredible defense. How do you argue physics in a courtroom?
Well, he did.
Yeah.
For the objective fact of social chaos, he brought up complex systems theory. He even invoked the TIP theorem.
The CIP theorem, I know that from, computer science.
Exactly. It's about distributed networks.
Yeah.
And he also cited self-organized criticality. His point was that large, decentralized systems, like a public social network, have inherent fault tolerance. They're built to withstand noise.
So few retweets can't bring it down.
That was his argument. He showed his own online influence was tiny low follower count, near zero measurable impact. He basically said, from a scientific causal perspective, it was scientifically impossible for his tweets to cause severe chaos, a failure of physics.
That's amazing. But what about intent? That's psychological, not physical. How did he defend his own inner mental state?
He deployed another tool, a philosophical one. He argued that his default state as a scientist is one of fundamental skepticism.
Okay.
He even cited Gödel's incompleteness theorem.
Wait, Gödel in a criminal trial?
I know, as audacious. But his point was, loosely applied, that in any complex system, you can't prove all truths from within it.
So he couldn't possibly know with certainty if some political comment was true or false.
Exactly. He studies viewpoints because he doubts them. His inner state, he argued, was doubt and suspicion, not the malicious certainty the law required.
But you have to wonder, did this incredibly high-level defense backfire? Did it make him seem, arrogant?
That's exactly what the sources suggest happened. And it leads us right to the core logical flaw in the judgment itself. The court didn't just reject his reasoning.
Right, they inverted it.
They completely inverted it. And this is where it gets really interesting, this judicial error chain.
Tell us about it.
The court used his status as a PhD, his high cognitive level, as the main piece of evidence to presume his guilt.
So wait, their logic was, you're smart, so you must have known this was wrong.
That's it. You are smart, therefore you must have known the official position is the truth and what you shared was false.
Yeah.
They created what the analysis calls an identity-based guilt.
They penalized him for his intelligence What does that say about the institution? What fear does that expose?
A fear of uncontrolled rationality, I think. When the system uses intelligence to presume malice, it's basically saying that independent thought itself is dangerous to the order.
And the allegations about the actual legal procedure, well, they paint an even darker picture.
They really do. Dr. Chen's complaints list off severe violations. He claims a zero-evidence start, arrest first, find the evidence later.
Wow.
He alleges illegal detention, threats, being denied food and sleep, his family not being notified. I mean, the list goes on.
But the moment that really stood out for me in the sources was what happened in court when he tried to present his defense.
That moment, yes. He's trying to make this rational case, and the judge just silences him. The command was, shut up, answer yes or no.
For a scholar, for anyone really, that's just a profound violation.
It's what the analysis calls the most naked deprivation of dignity. Your entire life is based on reasoned discourse, and you're told to just shut up.
And then to top it all off, in the appeal, they flipped the burden of proof.
Precisely. The court upheld the conviction, saying Dr. Chen failed to submit new evidence to prove his innocence.
Which is not how it works.
It's the opposite of how it's supposed to work. The state has to prove guilt. You don't have to prove your innocence, especially when you're confined and can't gather evidence.
And he also pointed out the selective enforcement, right? I mean, thousands of other people shared this content. Why him?
And that's the pivot point. When the facts are contradicted by science, the intent is contradicted by the scholar's mindset, and the procedure is full of violations, you have to ask a different question.
When the law fails on facts and procedure, where does it fail morally?
Exactly. And that takes us right into Act 2, where we move past the facts and start applying these philosophical sledgehammers to the judgment itself.
The analysis synthesizes all this into three major tensions.
And this gives us a kind of universal language for understanding why this judgment feels so wrong. It's not just about one country's law. It's about universal principles of justice.
Okay, let's start with tension one. Rationality, morality, and dignity. The analysis brings in Thomas Nagel and Martha Nussbaum.
So Nagel's idea of the view from nowhere suggests that true rationality means being able to step back, to pursue objective truth. The analysis argues that's what Dr. Chen was trying to do.
Trying to get that objective view of a complex system.
Yes. And his tragedy is that this pursuit was just crushed by the institution's pursuit of, local formal legality. The state's action becomes violence disguised as objective truth.
And Nussbaum frames this in terms of human flourishing.
Right. Her capabilities approach is about what a society needs to provide for people to live a dignified life. And this judgment is seen as a systematic attack on Dr. Chen's core capabilities.
How so?
Well, it attacked his sensory, imagination, and thought by punishing academic inquiry. And, most brutally, his practical reason, his ability to plan his life and defend himself by telling him to shut up in court.
That total deprivation of dignity.
Exactly.
Okay, so tension two, the classic conflict, law versus conscience. The analysis uses Lon Fuller, Martin Luther King Jr., and Thoreau.
Lon Fuller gives us this vital checklist for the inner morality of law, right? 8 principles a legal system has to follow to be legitimate. The sources argue this case violates almost all of them.
Which one most clearly?
The principle of generality. This wasn't a universal rule applied equally to all. It was a targeted, specific command aimed at one person. And of course, clarity.
The biggest problem with picking quarrels in general.
Absolutely. The term is so vague, nobody can really know how to comply. Fuller's analysis shows the system basically broke its own social contract.
And this connects to how King and Thoreau saw unjust laws.
Right. For King, an unjust law is one that degrades human personality and is applied arbitrarily. Well, this law did both. So Dr. Chen's non-compliance isn't a crime anymore.
It becomes a moral testimony.
A moral testimony against injustice. And that makes him a Thoreauvian figure, conscience above law. By accepting the punishment, his prison cell becomes a kind of moral high ground, forcing society to look at the law itself.
So our final tension, number 3, looks at utility and consequences. This is the cost-benefit analysis through Bentham, Singer, and Hare.
Jeremy Bentham's utilitarianism is all about maximizing the greatest good. The analysis here quantifies the punishment as just a massive generator of negative utility.
What are the costs?
The costs are huge. Destroying a scholar's life, wasting judicial resources, creating a chilling effect on all intellectuals. And the benefit.
Near zero. He caused no actual chaos.
Precisely. So the cost is vastly disproportionate to the harm. The law completely fails the principle of proportionality. The math just doesn't add up.
And Peter Singer's approach adds another layer to that.
It does. Singer's all about societal preferences. This action frustrates all the preferences we want in a healthy society. Innovation, trust, open discourse.
And it does that just to satisfy a short-term preference for what? Quiet.
For absolute quiet and ease of enforcement, it's a catastrophic long-term moral accounting error.
And finally, R.M. Hare's universalizability test. What happens if we apply the court's logic to everyone?
If the logic high degree equals guilty intent were applied universally to all scholars, well, the consequence is clear. Academic freedom would just cease to exist. No rational society could accept that consequence. It proves the initial judgment is morally bankrupt.
We also have to mention Dr. Chen's brilliant move in his own complaint, where he turned the state's own language back on the local court.
Oh, absolutely. It was clever. He argued the local court was violating the state's own high-level strategic goals. Punishing him for looking at foreign ideas contradicts official calls for civilization exchange.
He's saying you're not even following your own script.
Exactly. And he pointed out the diplomatic absurdity of a local court claiming it can judge the truthfulness of statements by foreign leaders.
So what does this all mean? If you bring together the scientific defense, the procedural flaws, all 8 of these philosophical critiques, what's the one big lesson you should take away?
I think the common thread is that the judgment consistently elevated the form of authority over every single principle of justice. It prioritized control over evidence, proportionality, dignity, and intellectual freedom.
For you, the listener, this whole deep dive really provides a crucial framework. When you see a clash between an individual and an institution, these are the guardrails to look for.
The burden of proof, proportionality, human dignity, they aren't just academic concepts. They are the defenses we have against arbitrary power.
And that brings us to an incredibly powerful final question, one that Dr. Chen himself forced the system to confront. The sources note that he used his own blood to write his final complaint.
Turning his own physical suffering into evidence. So what happens when a citizen has to rely on the testimony of their own body to prove the truth, rather than relying on the law?
Does the system lose its legitimacy entirely when the moral agent, Dr. Chen, the scholar, represents the truth, and the legal institution, through all its crimes, represents the falsehood? It forces you to confront his final harrowing claim.
That the court documents themselves aren't records of justice.
But are the true evidence of the judicial crime that was committed against him?
It asks us to consider a chilling thought, that sometimes the ultimate act of rational conscience isn't just critique, but self-sacrifice. And that is a moral truth that requires, I think, some deep reflection.